This is a Frost or a Freeze build based upon 3 different legendary items that I found so far. The consequence of that is that there are special things that this build can do that you cannot do with typical rare items. Legendary items also roll higher affixes for intelligence and vitality and whatnot, so it allows you to play at higher torment levels. So I'm going to go ahead and start this game on torment 3 and see where it goes. So in the last playtest I did a bounty, and this one we're going to do Naphalem Rift. Let's go ahead and go to Act 5. Not that it really matters, the rifts are the same no matter which act that you start on. But let's begin by showing you the gear that I'm using, specifically the 3 special items. So the first one is Azurewrath, and unlike D3V, this is actually a decent item. It has each item in RoS comes with the possibility of rolling up to 4 primaries and 2 secondaries. So for this weapon, 4 primaries are your cold damage, cold skills that deal 17% more damage, increase attack speed, and the 4th one is at the bottom, and that's a socket, which I went to the Mystic and had her re-roll, and I eventually got a socket, so I can go ahead and put a gem in there for critical hit damage. Those are my 4 primaries. The 2 secondaries are 21% chance to freeze on hit, and the second one is undead enemies take extra weapon damage, which I've never really bothered to see. I've been more interested in the freeze on hit. The second item that I'm using is this legendary source called Light of Grace. This also happened to roll with 4 primaries and 2 secondaries. The 4 primaries being intelligence, crit hit chance. I re-rolled a junk stat for 9 APOC, and the 4th primary is that the Ray of Frost does an extra 11% damage. The secondaries, the most cool one is that Ray of Frost now pierces enemies, so it acts much like Disintegrate Beam or an Archon Beam. So that is pretty awesome. It almost makes the Ray of Frost, all the other runes, viable, as opposed to just the typical Sleet Storm one that you see in D3V. The third item that I found is a Cold SOJ. 4 primaries are cold damage, does an extra 19% damage. It had a really high intelligence roll. It probably took about 6 or 8 rolls. I was finally able to get crit hit damage to roll. And the 4th primary is that elites take an extra 27% damage, which is pretty darn huge when you start going to the higher torment levels. As a secondary fix, it also has some extra max arcane power, which is really good for channeling. Now the gloves I'm using are just standard gloves, intelligence, vitality, crit damage, but unlike D3, Frostburn gauntlets are actually really good for this build since they also have a chance to freeze. I'd been waiting for a while to make this video, but until I found some, but I haven't found any, so this is what I got to go with. I have the standard ring that I had from the last video: intelligence, vitality, crit hit chance, and damage. The shoulders I'm rolling with are pretty standard. They have 87 all res and 14% to familiar damage, so it's not only going to buff the damage of Ray of Frost, but if you're using something like Sleet Storm, which has a smaller radius, it actually lets you target enemies that are further away with that familiar damage, so something to think about. Now the helm I'm using, that I'm going to start out using, has intelligence, crit hit chance, extra Ray of Frost damage of 15%, and a socket. It does not have any APOC on it, and we're going to see how well this build does with just one source of APOC, and that is on the source. I also found a Tel chest, intelligence, vitality, all res, attack speed, and 3 sockets. The attack speed actually works against me since I'll be consuming more AP per second, but just kind of too good to pass up. Nothing special about my belt. All res and percent life are the extras. Same thing with the pants. I tend to use my sockets for extra all res since I don't necessarily get to stack those on other items because I'm filling it up with elemental damage and whatnot. Boots have all res and extra ray of frost damage. There's no movement speed here, so if you want to do that, I'm going to have to do that using paragon points. These Promise of Glories are actually pretty darn nice items, rolled with 17% more cold damage, maximum intelligence roll, really high vitality roll, and 6% crit chance. And it's the same amulet, intelligence, vitality, and high crit chance, crit damage rolls. So let's go ahead and look at the paragon points in the core category. Right now I have everything set for max arcane power, which actually might be nice for this build because it's going to keep our well up to 139 for arcane power. But just for the sake of it, I'm going to go ahead and put all of my points into movement speed so we can move around the screen a little quicker. So it's going to do 21% movement speed. We could split these up, but I'm just going to keep it like this for now. Also, in offense, we have everything in critical hit chance. That'll help out our APOC a little bit, since we'll be critting a little more often. In defense, everything's in life regeneration. Wizards have very little or very few ways to recover life, so life regeneration is where I have mine, and utility is all in resource cost reduction, which will help our AP spend. As far as the skills I'm using, Ray of Frost Snow Blast is a new rune, so enemies take 15% more damage for 4 seconds with that rune. Still using teleport, safe passage, because I like teleport. Blizzard, I'm going to use Grasping Chill, and this one will reduce the speed that enemies move by 80%, so that's going to be one of our snares. Our other snare is Frost Nova Bone Chill. Instead of an extra 10 to 15% damage from frozen enemies like in D3V, this one does 33% more damage for 2 seconds when enemies are frozen. That's a huge amount of damage, so we're going to try to take advantage of that, especially when enemies are close and frozen. And on top of that, I like this Ice Armor Ice Reflect rune. So melee attacks, once again, when enemies are close up, they have a 40% chance to create a Frost Nova. So you're kind of perhaps doubling down on that. But regardless, it helps keep you safe. And Familiar Spark Flint. There's not any familiar runes that are ice-based except for Icicle, which typically I would use. It has an extra chance to freeze an enemy, but for the sake of just seeing what Azurewrath does on its own for freeze, I'm going to leave that alone. 4 passives I'm going to use. Glass Cannon for more DPS. Unwavering Will is great for channeling spells because when you are standing for 1.5 seconds, it increases your armor, all res, and DPS. Since I am using Glass Cannon, I'm going to go ahead and use Blur to decrease all damage taken. And of course Cold-Blooded, so when enemies are chilled or frozen, which they will be most of the time, they will take a 10% increase in damage. Let's go ahead and close that up. And let's go ahead and open up a rift and see what we get. So these rifts, they appear in all the different acts with the same obelisks, and they are randomly generated maps. You don't know where you're going to go. You also do not know what sort of enemies that you are going to find. You could end up in an Act 1 type of landscape with enemies that you would normally only see in Act 4. So it's completely random. You have no idea what you're going to see. And the reward in the end, once you clear a certain amount of enemies, is the Naphalem Rift boss. So when you kill that boss, there's obviously going to be a pretty good drop of items associated with that. Let's go ahead and open the rift and give it a go. So the other nice thing about RoS is that you're able to change any of your active or passive abilities in mid-game and suffer no sorts of consequences. So to begin with, areas like this are great for using Ray of Frost because the enemies are going to be funneled down, so you can take them out a lot easier. But if you're in a big wide open area, you can just switch to Sleet Storm and get enemies that are much closer into you, and you can switch off at will. So let's go ahead and put on our shield, put on familiar, and see what we can do. So you can see the bar on the right. You have to kill a certain number of minions before the Rift boss comes out. So it behooves you to kill all the minions that you come across. You can't simply jump out to the end and try to cheat. You have to kill everything as you come across it. So usually what I do is what I'm doing now. Cast a Blizzard and blast away. You can see the AP pool getting down really low really quickly, and you can see the Ray of Frost beam cutting out. It's going to take quite a while for it to refill enough for me to cast a Blizzard here. So there you can go. I've finally got a Blizzard off, so that's pretty annoying. So let's go ahead and change our helm. I have a helm here which has APOC. Let's go ahead and put that on. I'll take a hit in life certainly, but it'll give me twice as much APOC, so I should be able to channel a lot longer. And we see the boss up here. Let's go ahead and focus on the boss. And you can see the Ray of Frost doing a good amount of damage. Let's go ahead and Blizzard, freeze them, and now you can see him going down a lot quicker. So there's a cooldown on Frost Nova, so you just have to be cognizant of that and pay attention. You can see we're still running out of AP. So just for fun, let's make one more change here. I have some shoulders that have reduced resource cost by 6%. And mathematically, in this case, it actually works out to be pretty similar to one additional source of APOC. So we're going to give that a go and see what it does for us. So some maps are really, really dense. Other maps, can be kind of wide open like this, and you're like, where are all the enemies at? And it can be kind of slow going. It's a rift, so you never really know what you're gonna find. Let's freeze out the elite here with Frost Nova. Another thing to watch out for is health globes. You might kind of normally have forgotten about them in D3-V, but here in RoS, they're kind of your lifeline, especially for a wizard. Just always be prepared to run into one of them or teleport on top of one. Whatever works for you. We have another elite here. Let's slow it down. So our AP well is still, it still kind of gets crushed from time to time, and it's tough to fill up. So it's kind of the growing pains of the build. And there's nothing saying that I can't find another item that has resource cost reduction, or try to find a way to deal with it better. And that's one of the things that you have to weigh, are the different itemization possibilities.
Still waiting.
As you can see, we're only about 10%, 20% through the rift here. Some of the rifts are so big and very dense that you can actually finish it up on the first level. Other rifts might take you a while to go through. You'll have to you'll eventually find a door or a portal to go to the next level of the rift, and you know, each one's going to be very different. You have no idea what you're going to come across. So we're at an end here. Unfortunately, I don't have wormhole on. Wormhole would seem to be pretty good in this sort of situation. So, although this was not exactly the greatest rift to show you, because I'm not able to finish it up or finish off the Naphalem Rift boss, this is kind of the flavor of perhaps what you might see in ROS when you play. Hopefully you'll find one that's a little more enjoyable or a little more dense than this one. But I'm going to go ahead and port back to town and show you one other thing before I leave and sign off. And that's going to be Transmog. So this is pretty cool. You're actually able to change the look of your character. So right now she's kind of like a, a garbled mess as I've thrown on different sorts of gear sets. She has red and blue and green, and she's not going to win any fashion awards, we'll say. But what you can do is you can go out to the Mystic here, and you can go down to Transmogrify, and you can put any piece of gear that you want into here. Now you can choose to change the look of that gear into any item that is dropped in the game for you, or first of all, any of the old kind of D3V item looks are in here, as well as any other item that you found in game. So right now, the only wizard hat that I've found, or the only legendary helm, is the Dark Mage Shade. So if I want to, I could spend 50,000 gold and change her over to that look, and she would go running around with Dark Mage's Shade. Or you could choose something, wizard hat, you know, something like this if you want to see her cute little ponytail, or whatever. So let's go ahead and choose this one. So now her look's going to be of that crown. You can change, right click on Tal Rasha here, and you can go through and you can pick any sort of different chest look that you want. You know, find something that's cool, find something you like. That one's pretty cool, so, you know, just transmog that one. Shoulders are great because they're very prominent, so you could choose something really small, like this one, or looks like the Death Watch Mantle is the only legendary shoulder I found. You can go for that. You know, any of these big, huge ones. You can choose the Archon shoulders from the most recent patch. So let's go for something small like that. Why not? You can also choose, probably the neatest thing perhaps, is your weapon. So there's 3 legendary weapons that I've found, and if you want, you could walk around with the Azurewrath. You could choose the sword I found, or the axe, or, you know, any other weapon that you found in game. So it's for fun. Let's just keep it on Azurewrath because I like that. Same thing with the source. So looks like source is doing something weird. Looks like I cannot change the look of the source. But you can do it for boots. You can choose whichever boots you want.
That's impossible.
No bracers. But you can also do gloves. So secondarily to that, choosing what the items look like, you can also choose their colors. So just for fun, I always keep a good stash of dyes out here. So whereas in D3V, you really can't dye your items. Here you can. So pretty much all the items dye. So if you want to make her all black, you know, you can change everything to black. To chest, pants, no bracers, at least not right now. So you could go, let's do the helmet, so you could go with a look like that. Oh, let's get the boots. There you go, now the boots, and also the pants. So now she's completely all blacked out if you want to look like that, or you could, you know, highlight certain colors. Looks like I have a couple red dyes here. You know, you could highlight maybe her shoulders with red. You could do have her rock some red pants perhaps. You know, it's all up to you. So find a look that you like. So that's pretty much all I got for you here. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoy Reaper of Souls and the new itemization and rifts and bounties and the difficulty system. So have fun, and I hope to see y'all out there. Cheers.